on our YouTube channel. So welcome everyone to the first office hours of the 23-24 school year. I can't believe we're saying that already. I hope that each of you, whether you've been in for several weeks or several days, are off to a great start. And I trust and hope that each of you had time to relax and rejuvenate over the summer. So we have just a few questions that came in thus far. And as always, once I kind of go through those things, then I will open it up to additional questions. All right, so once more, I'm going to pop this slide up as a reminder. If you've not yet done so, please do sign in using the URL or the QR code. This is a new requirement by ODE, and this will be for all of our virtual or live sessions for anything you do going forward with any SST. So please take just a quick second to do that. All right, so I do want to let you know that, let me back up here for just a second. I want to let you know that my partner in crime, Helen Brophy, is not with us today because she is actually in a meeting as we speak in Columbus. So you're just getting Dee Dee today. No Dee Dee and Helen show, but she'll be back with us for next month. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. So our topics today are what to do with incoming students who enter with expired ETRs. Also, what is the expectation for when you have an expired ETR within your district or as an incoming and you cannot get a response from parents? How do you treat that situation? And then finally, we're going to talk about child fine for community schools. I know we have a few other folks who have just joined. So one final time, thank you for your patience. If you've not done so, please do sign in with the QR code or the URL. I'll put this up again at the end just to keep things moving forward, but we do ask that you please sign in for us. All right. So let's go ahead and move forward with our first question of the day. So the first question is, when a student moves in with an expired ETR, are you treating them as a student without a disability? Should you go through the RTI process as though they were not an identified child, or should you begin an ETR? So the short answer is, this is a little bit of a double-edged sword. Because of the rule that went into effect last year that all expired ETRs, whether in-state, out-of-state, expired by a day, expired by 5 years, are treated as an initial. Technically speaking, then if it's an initial, when you go to do an ETR, it would technically make the student a student without a disability. However, here's the double-edged sword part. IDEA, as well as the ADA protection under the Office of Civil Rights, states very clearly that if there is knowledge of even a suspicion, you must put in place protections and move forward treating that child as though you anticipate that that child will be a student with a disability. So when I say that, I mean, like in terms of discipline, particularly, if there is a suspicion that a student may be a student with a disability, you have to afford the same protections for that student that you would for a student who is already identified. So when I say it's a double-edged sword, that's exactly what I mean, that you can't truly turn a blind eye and pretend that, oh, this is a student who's never been identified just because the ETR is expired, because clearly you have knowledge of more than a suspicion. You know that this is a student who's already been identified. So the best advice that we can give is it is acceptable and appropriate to say, we want to allow a brief period of time for teachers to get to know a student. Obviously, if it's a student just moving into your district with an expired ETR, what I would say is within 30 days, get consent and begin that process. And obviously, throughout the process of drafting the ETR, you're gathering additional information. Teachers are having eyes on students and are performing assessments and getting to know the students throughout that process as well. But it's okay to take, 3 or 4 weeks to get a little bit of insight and information about a new student who's coming with an expired ETR before you start the evaluation. I just wouldn't push that past 30 days. So hopefully that answers that for everyone. And obviously, you all know that if you have any questions, you can stop me at any point in time. You can pop it in the chat, or you can unmute and ask for clarification. Okay, so if you spent any time with us last year, you are aware that this has come up repeatedly due to the change that went into effect at the beginning of last year, that when a student has an expired ETR, it is now treated as an initial. And it doesn't matter, as I already said, in-state, out-of-state. We used to differentiate between those, and that is no longer the case and has not been for some time. However, this does present an inherent problem when you can't get a response from parents. One of the luxuries, if you will, of when we used to be able to treat those as a review ETR is that once you've had consent, you don't actually have to have a parent signature on the ETR nor on the IEP, as you all know. But when it's an initial, that changes everything. And so you cannot move forward without agreement and participation by the parent, and you cannot implement an IEP without the parent. So this then does open up a whole can of worms of, well, what do we do? Do we then in fact have to dismiss a student from special services? And sadly, the answer is eventually yes. You are going to, while you are doing your due diligence to contact the parent and get some participation and get a signature from a parent, you are going to continue to serve the student. But ultimately, if you do not get consent, if you do not get participation, you do not get signature from a parent, you cannot move forward. And ultimately you will be dismissing the student from special services. And so what we suggest is, in those circumstances, which thankfully those are few and far between, but we do know that they happen. When you are faced with a situation like that, you are going to go way above and beyond in trying to get the parent's consent for evaluation, get participation from the parent, get a signature for that initial IEP. And one of the things that we would strongly suggest is that you communicate in any way that you can to the parent that without that, their child will no longer be eligible for any kind of service, and that you would in fact be dismissing the child from special education. So that is kind of everything in a nutshell. As I said, I know that's probably not what everyone wants to hear, but that is the ruling, that is the policy from the state. And so again, our best suggestion is, use your Herculean efforts to get some response from the parent in that situation. Oh, I think I missed one. Okay, sorry. I did have actually one more question. I don't know why it's not popping up there. The other question that came in also concerning ETRs, is who is responsible for child find with a community school? Is it the district of residence or is it the district of service? And the short answer is neither. Community schools or charter schools, mostly we refer to them as community schools nowadays, those are completely different than a non-public. There are different rules and guidance for who is responsible when a student attends a non-public, such as a private or parochial school. Some things go back to the district of residence, some things fall on the district of service, which is the school that private or parochial school lies within its boundaries. That is not the case for a community school. When a family opts to attend a community school, the community school in essence becomes the district of residence. And the community school is wholly responsible for every aspect of the child's education, including child find, all the way through delivery of services and transportation. So there shouldn't really be any involvement from the original district of residence where the student lives, nor a district of service, because there really isn't a district of service. So wherever the public LEA is, that the community school falls within its boundaries, has no bearing. Again, the responsibility is completely on the community school, and community schools are not able to say, you know, we don't offer that here, or we don't have that. When they accept students with disabilities, the responsibility falls wholly and completely on them for every aspect of the child's education. Okay, so that was kind of everything that we had that came in ahead of time. At this time, I'm going to open it up for any questions about anything that I touched on thus far, or any additional questions that you may have, or things that you want to discuss. And I have good wait time, so I'm going to give it a full minute before I say, you know, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Dee Dee. I have a question about the new bill that's going into effect in October about districts having 5 days to get documents for transfer students.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had a little bit of trouble hearing you. Will you just repeat that one more time?
Yeah, sorry about that. I have a question about the new bill that's going into effect in October about districts having 5 days to get transfer documents to the new school.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening if that 5 days isn't met? Like, what's the accountability with that?
Right. So basically, what are the consequences, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I understand completely. And I'll be honest, we have not had any additional guidance or clarification on that. So that's something that I have on the agenda to try to get to from the Office of Exceptional Children. So I'm meeting with them frequently. We do have a review going on in our region this year. So Helen and I are both in frequent contact with them. We're hoping to get some additional clarification. Thus far, there has not been anything beyond what you've all already seen. Just here's the rule, this is what's going into effect. But in terms of how that accountability is monitored and what the ramifications are if not met, we don't really have any answers. So I'm sorry about that. But obviously, as soon as we do, we'll be sharing that out with everyone. Any additional questions that anyone has? Okay, I'm going to wait a few more seconds, and then before we wrap up, I'm going to just pop up that slide one more time for anyone who did not get to sign in for attendance. All right, feel free if you have a question, you can still throw it at me, but if you entered a little bit late and you did not have an opportunity to do this, please take just a moment to sign in. This is something that is required by ODE. They have asked all SSTs to do this. So whether we're live in person or doing something virtual, we will be asking you at every event to please sign in with attendance. So you can use the QR code or you can use the URL. Okay, and I do have a question that has popped up in the chat. Thanks, Liz. I see you don't have a microphone, but you're asking to review the guidance to have gen ed added to support for school personnel, right? So you want to know about documenting where the gen ed teacher goes on section 7. Is that what you're asking, Liz? Okay. All right, gotcha. Okay, so yes, so if you recall, we've shared this multiple times. This is, we talk about this at length in our Beyond IEP Canvas course, but it is not a change in who serves the student. So I want to just say that first and foremost. The expectation is that general education teachers have as much ownership and responsibility for the education of our students with disabilities as the intervention specialist. So this in no way nullifies that they can deliver specially designed instruction and should be delivering specially designed instruction and collecting data on student progress. However, how it is listed in the IEP is very specific. Only the intervention specialist can be listed under SDI in section 7. That has to be the intervention specialist. The general education teacher, or the content specialist, as we like to call them, must still be listed. They get listed under support for school personnel, and you are just describing that collaboration and that support and communication between the IS and the gen ed teacher. And you might say something like, the intervention specialist will provide or will collaborate weekly with the general education teacher to ensure continuity of specially designed instruction. And they will, discuss assessments and interventions or accommodations, whatever the case may be. You're just giving a little blurb there about that connection, really. So how they're collaborating, and I like to suggest that you say how often. It may be daily, it may be weekly. It really shouldn't be anything further out than bi-weekly at a maximum. And again, it doesn't matter if the student is served completely in an inclusive setting and all services are provided by a gen ed teacher. You still have to write it that way. Or if they're in a co-taught classroom, you're still writing it that way. You're still describing that collaboration and that connection between the intervention specialist and the general education teacher. And again, I just want to stress that this does not negate the responsibility of our gen ed partners for educating our students. It's simply to bring Ohio in line with the federal regulation of how we capture it in the IEP. Good, Liz, did that answer everything? Okay, perfect. All right, any other questions? All right, well, then if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us I know some of you are really just getting back in there and just have students who have come in the last week or so. Hope everything's off to a good start. Don't forget, next month, we'll do that afternoon time slot. As always, we will rotate morning and afternoon every other month. So that'll be on October 11th at 1. And you can register by going to our website, click professional development and events. And before we go, I do also just want to put in a quick plug to remind you that we have returning teams refresher for existing internal monitoring teams coming up this month. That's on the 21st. So if you've not registered for that, don't forget to do that. It's only 2 hours, and that's always a great opportunity to bring either a few folks or your entire team for important updates and considerations around internal monitoring. And our 3-day intensive training for new teams will be October 16th and 17th, and then day 3 will be on February 15th. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone. We look forward to seeing you at Special Ed Forum coming up on the 12th, and obviously next month for office hours. And in the meantime, you know that if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of Helen or myself. So everyone, take care and have a great September and start to the school year.